The fuck?
Good morning from Zurich. Today we're flying Swiss in first class.
After a short stay in Switzerland, it's time to go home, and I was lucky enough to be able to do it on a Swiss A340 as the only passenger in first class. Here's that story. My flight left in the early afternoon and took us north out of Switzerland, flying over France and then the UK to cross the Northern Atlantic. Passing south of Greenland, we'll approach Canada over Newfoundland, then descend along the St. Lawrence River into Montreal. This daytime flight of some 3,720 miles will take a little over 8 hours. My day started back in Zurich, which, despite being Switzerland's most populous city, still retains a small town charm. On the water and sandwiched between picturesque rolling hills, it's almost impossible to take a bad photo here.
Some people say that Switzerland is like the Texas of Germany, and I don't really agree with that. I think it's more like Wisconsin, and that no one should ever compare Wisconsin to Germany.
I mean, I get it. Some parts of this country might look German, and a lot of people, especially here in Zurich, speak German, but saying that it's pretty much Germany would discount hundreds of years of Helvetian history.
I can, however, see what they're going on about. There are a lot of banks here, and old buildings, and rivers, and trams, and sex stores. Yeah, maybe they have a point.
To me, this is a country of farmers turned alpine herdsmen, turned medieval Spartans, turned mercenaries, who became pacifist clockmakers, and eventually bankers. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid tourist passing through here, taking in the sights. Speaking of sights, I stayed at a quaint little hotel in the old town by the water, which afforded me easy access to the riverfront. Taking a walk along here in the morning, it was fascinating to see people going about their routine with an oil painting as a backdrop.
Alright, this is pretty nice. But let's go back to the airport now.
The Swiss take public transit very seriously, and Zurich is no exception. The city is interlaced with a dizzying web of tram lines that will take you from anywhere you can be to anywhere you can go. They even have funiculars and cable cars. The city and surrounding region is also served by a network of local and national rail lines. Like the timepieces the country is known for, they're very reliable. I guess you can say that they run like clockwork. Get it? Because it's like... yeah, just... go ahead and unsubscribe. The main international airport in Zurich is the Zurich International Airport, and whether it be train or tram, it'll only take about 20 minutes to get from the city center to here. However, if a more physically distant solution is required, then you can always get a taxi or an Uber, although both will run you an arm and a leg. But then again, this is Switzerland, where merely existing costs a fortune. While not a full EU member state, Switzerland does participate in the Schengen zone, so the airport is hence divided to reflect its border, with separate passport-controlled areas for Schengen and non-Schengen flights. Opened in 2003, the Midfield Satellite Terminal hosts mostly international departures and is connected to the main building via an underground metro. Inside the terminal, first-class passengers and top-tier frequent flyers have access to first-class check-in, which at 10 a.m. was closed. No matter, there's a check-in lounge with champagne and snacks, which was fortunately also closed. The premium ticketing office, however, was thankfully not open. You know what? It's no big deal. I went over to the business check-in next door, which was happily all closed. Okay, seriously, what the hell is going on here? In the end, I did find someone in the business counter to check my bag. He was very polite, although I could tell he was wondering how a lowly pleb such as I ended up at the front of the plane.
So if you follow me, you know that I don't usually fly first nor try to get into first class. But there was a pretty sweet deal from an upgrade from business to first on this flight, and it's my birthday coming up, so I took it. And apparently I'm the only person in the first class cabin as of right now. Some other people might upgrade. But yeah, let's check it out.
So, first class passengers and Han members get to use this super exclusive security point here in Zurich, which takes you straight through to the first class lounge. Don't get me wrong, I'm very content and grateful that work flies me around in business all the time, but this was an occasion, and I couldn't help but feel excited. I've never been here before, but I've heard all these fantastic tales of the indulgence and hedonism behind these doors, out of sight of the oblivious majority, with the lucky few privileged enough to see behind the veil and even fewer
Okay, you know what? They might be closed.
God damn it. As it turns out, there weren't enough passengers to justify opening this lounge, and had I done my homework, I wouldn't have been as disappointed, but oh well.
Okay, alright. Let's go use the proletariat check-in. It's not that bad.
It really wasn't. The priority line was in operation, and I found their display of what's acceptable to bring through kind of comical. There were no lines to speak of, so security was a breeze, and afterwards I was deposited amid the labyrinth of the archetypal European duty-free. But having been bankrupted earlier by the taxi ride, I didn't spend any time here. Instead, I went to look for the open-air terraces in this airport, as they provide some of the best unobstructed apron views in any major hub. And at this point, it came as no surprise that it too was closed. Regardless, the curtain walls still let in some decent views, although there wasn't a whole lot to see apart from this United Dreamliner, which coincidentally I'll be taking in a couple of weeks. The main terminal building itself was very clean, functional, and modern, with clear signage and a straightforward layout. The duty-free stores here were a lot nicer than what you typically expect in most airports, as were the restaurants, as they too were very high-end. With that said, I didn't spend much time on the concourse, as I was told that there was in fact a lounge that was open, specifically the Swiss A340 Business and Senator Lounge. At the time, admission was granted to anyone who had Star Alliance lounge access, and fortuitously, it had automated gates fitted, allowing for contactless entry. It may not be the first class lounge, but this place was nonetheless beautifully lit, and adorned with the airline's wood motif, it felt warm and inviting. There was ample seating distributed throughout the space, and even a breakfast buffet. While physical distancing measures were put in place, they weren't overall very intrusive, and the lounge felt pretty normal. And when more people showed up later in the morning, the staff opened another portion of the lounge, which doubled the capacity with even more seating and tables. In terms of refreshments, well, they were provided by a proud array of Swiss-made espresso machines, which could deliver everything from a macchiato to iced strawberry milk. There were also iced teas available, different types of water, fruits, a spread of yogurts, and most importantly, a generous amount of alcohol. The impressive selection of beers and different varieties of wine were available even at 11 AM, as it should be. At the breakfast station, a man dressed like a chef was making omelets to order, although he might have just been a chef. Amazingly, you could have anything in it you want, from chicken drumsticks to shrimp. There were other breakfast staples to accompany, including fresh bakery items. If you're not too hungry, they also offered sweet and savory snacks, and this being a Swiss lounge after all, candy. Although I'm not sure if Ricola can be considered candy. The chocolates definitely can, and they were of course very popular. Covering a few more amenities, this lounge had these little offices in case you need to conduct any last-minute banking or whatever business you do, and to aid this further, there was a printer, free to use of course, and a fridge full of Movenpick ice cream, also free. I'm not sure how this plays into productivity, but it's definitely much more exciting. This being Europe after all, there's a smoking terrace, and understandably but still sadly, while there were showers, they weren't open when I visited. Neither were the quiet seating areas of the lounge. When I came into the lounge, I was told that there was a class divide, namely this roped-off section reserved for first-class passengers and HAN members. It wasn't a very large space, but then again, there was hardly anyone here. The seating was arguably a little bit nicer, but otherwise not too different from the rest of the spaces. There was a small self-serve bar with wines typically reserved for first-class lounges, and I found this particular rosé particularly good. The area was raised a few steps above the rest of the space for no other apparent purpose than that of being able to look down on the lower rungs of society. But otherwise, there wasn't anything too special about it. I guess they just wanted the guests here to feel a little bit more exclusive. Anyways, I tucked into my breakfast and had just a little bit of champagne.
Every time I'm in Europe, I always end up drinking way too much. I really need to start cutting down on the alcohol consumption. Like, it can't be good for me. Okay, thank you very much. Dankeschön. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. D-gates, D-gates, D-gates. Where are the D-gates?
One drawback of that lounge was that it was located in the Schengen zone, so I had to give myself a little bit of extra time to clear passport control.
God, I'm stupid. I don't know where. D39. Where the hell is D39? It's that way. I've had too much to drink, haven't I? Yes. Well, this is a pretty good cure for a hangover, which is just to keep drinking so you don't get a hangover. At some point, the cumulative hangover will kill me, but we're gonna put that off as long as we can. I do have to say, if you've never come to Switzerland before, and especially through Zurich, the passport staff, the border control staff, border police, immigration officers. The immigration officers are an absolute gem here. They're so polite, so helpful, just so nice. They want you to have a good time in their country, and just complete opposite of like immigration officers anywhere else in the world. There's a man with an MP5 and a mask behind me, and that's intimidating. All right, where's our plane?
Our plane, as it turns out, was parked outside, looking pretty good from this ground floor perspective. What it is an A330 with 4 engines, also known as an A340. Fight me in the comments. I got to the gate pretty late, but I still had enough time to get my boarding pass stamped and stickered before boarding began. This was done by the travel documents people to make sure that you're allowed into the country.
So just a quick temperature check before boarding the flight. Otherwise, business as usual, or first class in this case.
While our gate did have 2 jetways, only one was connected. I didn't mind this at all. It made for a better view of the plane thanks to these awesome glass jet bridges. It also would have been a complete waste of everyone's time and energy to open another door for just one passenger, especially when that one passenger is me.
Hi there, good afternoon, that's me.
Okay, welcome.
Okay. Is it okay if I take photos on board your flight? Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay.
If you picture persons.
Oh,
you
no, I
should
won't.
probably go
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Once on board, I passed through the forward business cabin, which I've made a video about if you want to check it out, but on this flight I moved on into the first class cabin and quickly found my seat, 1A. Although the purser did tell me that as the only passenger in the cabin, I could move around to wherever I wanted, which is something I wish I heard every time I got on a plane. Being the sole recipient of attention from the crew, they wasted no time in introducing themselves to me. I had the pleasure of being looked after by a wonderful Ursula and Christian throughout the flight, both of whom were phenomenally persuasive in getting me to stuff myself with more food and wine, starting with an insistence of having a glass of champagne as soon as I got to my seat. This was accompanied by some exquisitely seasoned cashews, but before I get ahead of myself, let's first have a look at the cabin. Every first class seat comes in its own enclosed suite. There are 8 of them in total, configured in a 1-to-1 layout. These cabins have also recently been refurbished, making them quite a new product. The middle seats might be of preference to those traveling together, but at the same time it can also be closed off to one another for more privacy with a massive raisable divider. Undoubtedly, the highlight of each suite is the TV, which at 32 inches is just plain crazy. I especially loved how subtle all the branding touches in the cabin were. They contributed to a sophisticated atmosphere without being gauche or tacky. On a practical level too, it was very convenient that the cabin was finished in a bright white theme, letting in lots of light, which made filming very easy. Let's do a comprehensive seat tour now, starting not with the IFE, we'll revisit that later, but rather this partition where you'll find the provided hangers. Across from you is another seat, where in this case I stashed all the goodies I received, but this is also where you can have someone join you for a meal, there's even a seatbelt. But I don't have any friends, so I just ate alone. And speaking of eating alone, underneath this flap is the tray table. Now I'm not going to attempt to pull it out, it's quite impossible with one hand. Back here, there's a small tray area meant to hold a drink or two, and further back you'll find a row of basic seat and lighting controls. There's a sizable storage cubby down here and a conveniently placed charging outlet, along with a USB Type-A charge port. Underneath this flap, you'll find more storage as well as the IFE remote. There are also more charging points, headphone ports, and cleverly hidden away comprehensive seat controls that take seat adjustments to a whole new level. The lamp back here is dimmable to 5 different settings, and the seat itself, which is comfortably wide and superbly well supported, is finished in a soft fabric material, once again preferable over leather. The armrests don't go down, but really the seat is wide enough. There's an adjustable reading light up here, and controls for the motorized dividers. These, along with the door, were locked before takeoff, so I'll show them to you later. Overall, it's a very solid first class product, roomy, comfortable, and offering a lot of privacy. You might have noticed that there are no overhead bins in the middle. Instead, the ceiling features a very futuristic console of lights, making the entire cabin feel very airy. But sadly, while we're on the subject of air, the PSU did not have individual air vents, and the flight did run pretty hot. Thankfully, they did have safety cards, which doubles perfectly as fans. Alright, gratuitous seat tour over, it's time to drink my champagne.
Cheers, here's to a great flight. Why does that sound familiar? I swear someone said that before. Don't recall who it is.
As we push back, I couldn't help but notice the rare sight outside, and no, I'm not talking about the British Airways Dreamliner, but rather the jet bridge that doesn't say HSBC on it. Instead, it says UBS. This is probably the most Swiss thing I've seen all day.
My actions will be
When the seatbelt signs came off, the itineraries for today's festivities arrived. The menus. I'm talking about the menus. On flights departing out of Switzerland, the menu features dishes and cuisine inspired by a roster of different regions in the country. On today's flight, it was Zug, which was curious because half the menu was made up of seafood. You know, what with Switzerland being a landlocked country and all. There was a separate page reserved for cheese, and aptly so because there were a lot of them. Moving on to the drinks list, it was a modest selection with one champagne and a couple each of reds and whites, along with some dessert wine. Topping it off, they also offered teas, Nespresso, spirits, and port. Lunch started with an amuse-bouche. Now, I don't remember the specifics, but it featured a mousse of some kind and a dry-aged cheese. And although I don't remember exactly what was in it, I do remember this dish being pretty good. It was light and refreshing, and it also matched perfectly with the champagne, although that's true for a lot of things. For obvious reasons, hot towels were not provided, but they did give me a near endless supply of these wet wipes. Throughout the meal, the cabin crew kept checking in to see if I had everything I need, and the service was impeccable. For the appetizers, I went with the smoked trout mousse and the smoked salmon. While you are allowed to pick as many appetizers as you wanted, I didn't see that ending well. The salmon was beautifully prepared, looking almost too good to eat, but it's not like I'm gonna let that stop me. The smokiness was barely noticeable, with the natural fat and flavor of the fish being the star of the show. I don't know what else to say, it was just really good. Next up was the trout mousse. It was not as rich as I had expected, but still it was okay. Not a whole lot of flavor honestly for this one. Moving along, the flight attendants insisted that I try this soup, which was served at the perfect temperature. The beetroot sweetness contrasted the fennel and dill perfectly, and wrapped in a blanket of creaminess, it was thoroughly enjoyable. Look at my stupid face. Seeing as to how I pretty much only ordered seafood, I went for the Sauvignon Blanc for my choice of wine, and oh man was it good. I pretty much stuck with this for the entire meal and must have finished at least a bottle. The main course was a flawlessly presented pike perch. Also, I came to appreciate the smaller portions as it encourages you to try more dishes before becoming full. This perch on its own was super tender and juicy, but it also matched perfectly with the dill aioli. Along with the main course, there was a bread basket, which wasn't anything too special apart from the fact that it featured 3 different breads baked into one singular loaf. The lovely flight attendant also offered me some side dishes. I asked for the veggies, which came on a really hot plate. At this point, I've been eating for well over an hour, and the meal was nowhere near done. We were already over Ireland, and okay. I guess this is the kind of footage you get when I'm drunk. Alright, moving on. The next course was... seriously? Inebriated shenanigans aside, I was presented with a basket of digestive cookies. Now I had no idea what to do with these. I'm not going to eat them, they take up way too much space. And realizing this, the purser quickly took them away. Instead, she came back with a cheese plate, and at this point I was really thankful for the small portions because these cheeses were absolutely breathtaking.
Now I do like cheese and we eat it quite often, but most of the time it's the cheap supermarket stuff, so I'm probably not an expert at it. But this cheese, or rather these cheeses, are some of the best I've ever had, and oh my god, I am so happy. This is fantastic. This is supposed to be a sample platter, but I am going to finish it right now. They also do serve 20-year-old Graham's port in first class, so oh my god. I don't deserve this.
Personally, I'm a big fan of port, and paired with this unforgettable cheese plate, I felt truly spoiled. The final course was a hilariously well-presented ice cream bar, Covered in a decadent milk chocolate, I liked how simple it was, but still made for the perfect ending to an amazing experience. The flight attendant encouraged me to try this unpronounceable Hungarian dessert wine, which had a hint of honey but wasn't overall too sweet, a perfect complement for the ice cream. To finish things off, I was offered some of the Hallmark Lindt Swiss chocolate pralines, and I also asked for an espresso in an attempt to bring up my rating on the Glasgow Coma scale. And of course, I was given a handful of the Swiss branded milk chocolates. Finally, I received yet another menu. This one contained snacks as well as dine-on-demand options, but we'll revisit this later. There is no way I'm eating anymore right now.
Okay, that's just about the largest lunch I've ever had in my life. And I kind of want to take a nap now. But I also do want to check out economy class, and I do want to change into pajamas for a nap, so I should probably go check out economy class first, because wearing first class pajamas and then walking into economy class would be kind of a dick move. So let's go do that.
Just to clarify, I meant going to economy and not the dick move. It was pretty easy to find an empty economy seat, so let me quickly give you a tour. These seats feature a decent IFE screen, it articulates, and has headphone and USB charging ports beneath it. The tray table is of the bifold variety and deploys like this. It's very sturdy and a pretty good size. Oh, you fucking dumbass. There's also a small but sturdy cup holder that comes out like this. Pretty cute. Coat hook, and in terms of leg and knee room, there's tons of space. For reference, I'm 181 centimeters tall, or 5'11" if you're an American. The armrests go all the way back, giving you a generous amount of space if there's no one sitting next to you. And in terms of the recline, well, it's very generous. Overall, I'm very impressed with this economy product. If I were paying for my own ticket, I would definitely not hesitate to book this one, especially given the 242 configuration that it comes in on the Airbus fleet, as that is ideal for both families and, in the case of my girlfriend and me, couples. Here's the main business cabin. Now I won't go into detail since I've made a separate video, but on this flight, I bumped into a viewer of mine, and because I was alone in the first class, they let me bring him, this guy right here, back up with me.
So I said I was going to take a nap, but instead I went back to economy, and on my way, I found a friend. This is Eugene.
Nice to meet you.
Right? And then now we're hanging out. This is great. This is why you should start a YouTube channel, because then you find other weirdos who like planes and travel. Cheers. So Eugene is an accountant. I'm gonna play that song. It's like, I'm an accountant.
As an accountant, nobody asks you questions when you say you're an accountant.
There's really not much more to say. I actually do drugs.
Okay, so after a drink, or 25, Eugene went back to his seat and I decided to take that nap. But before I do that, let me show you the amenity kit and other goodies. This year's first class amenity kit comes in this low quality plastic bag. And inside of it is another much higher quality leather and fabric bag, and it's made by Bali. The contents inside were too numerous to individually go over, and oh my god, this video is already 30 minutes long, so let me just lay it out for you. Apart from the usual suspects, there was a pack of Ricola and a cosmetics bag which contained some luxurious products from La Prairie, which were instantly confiscated by my girlfriend when I got home. There were also provided pajamas and slippers, so let's head over to the bathroom to put these on. This is one of 2 first-class bathrooms. That's right, I had 2 all to myself. There wasn't anything outrageous in here, but they did, however, have these single-use cloth hand towels, as if the 4 engines on this plane weren't already environmentally unfriendly enough on their own. There was also a baby change table, and another leather padded bench which was useful in changing clothes. As was the full-length mirror. This is what the pajamas look like. They came in pants and a long-sleeve shirt. Both were black. They felt very thick and soft, definitely high quality, and can stand up to a lot of use. While I was gallivanting around the plane like an idiot, the crew made the seat adjacent to mine into a bed, complete with extra large pillows, a thick mattress topper, and a luxuriously thick duvet. It was very inviting, especially after consuming an ungodly amount of alcohol. Like I mentioned earlier, the doors can be closed, and this divider shut, albeit very slowly. Come on. There's also a divider between the two middle seats that comes up like this. All of this made each suite feel very private, although let's face it, that wasn't really much of a concern on this flight to begin with. In terms of the bed, it was very cozy. With soft touch materials and warm woods all around, it really felt like a hotel bed. Width was not an issue, and the mattress was nearly indistinguishable from that of our real beds. With more than half the flight still to go, I took one of the most glorious naps I've ever taken above 30,000 feet. After a solid 3 hours of sleep, I woke up to the soft cabin lighting and, not wanting to get out of bed just yet, decided to check out the IFE, whose 32-inch screen momentarily blinded me. Cataracts aside, the interface was very boxy, but otherwise easy to understand and navigate. In terms of the media, like I said in my business review, the selection was somewhat wanting. There were a few blockbuster new releases, some other less prominent new films, and a dozen or so older movies. When it came to TV shows, there were a handful of popular American and British programs, but with only a few episodes in each, and in some cases not even in the same season, there wasn't a lot you can binge. But whatever movie or TV show you do decide to watch, it'll be gorgeously presented on this massive screen, which is a treat all in itself. The in-flight map was handled by Airshow 3D, and once again, the gigantic screen made this experience very cool. All the functionality were present, from free roaming of the camera to the command center. There were no tail or other outboard cameras, which would have been super cool on this vintage quad jet, but no points off there. And although the screen is a touchscreen, the fact that it's out of reach means you'll probably be controlling it with the remote. In this case, it's the standard Panasonic handset with the software capable of playing a movie on the main screen while the remote displays the flight information. It didn't take me a whole lot of time to get sick of the movie selection, so I decided to get out of bed. We were still over the ocean, so there wasn't a whole lot to see outside. But since the lighting's pretty good over here, let me show you the headphones. These are the same as the ones they provide in business class, and if you've watched that review, you'll know that they weren't particularly comfortable. At least not for me, but I have an enormous head, so results may vary. Also, I noticed that waiting at my seat was a tub of ice cream. Unsure as to how it got there, the logical decision was to eat it. Seeing that I had woken up, the crew asked me if I wanted to have dinner. Not knowing what else to say, I said yes. So the table was set, and here we go again. Ordering off of the Dine Anytime menu, I took the recommendation of the crew and got the quiche. These were extra cheesy and made me contemplate as to how on earth I was going to lose all this weight when I got home. Not wanting to think too much about that, I instead asked to try the char. It came as a little bit of a surprise that these portions were larger than the first meals, especially when the menu described these as a snack. Nonetheless, the Arctic char was cooked perfectly throughout. The middle was soft, while the skin had just a little bit of crunch. Definitely very impressive for not just fish on a plane, but fish in general. Still recovering from the first meal and definitely unable to eat anymore, I passed up the fruit plate, but not before taking a shot of it. To finish, I asked for a mug of tea, which apparently I had forgotten was something that was served hot. As a reward for my gluttony, I received a giant bar of Swiss chocolate. I was told that it's exclusive to only the most enthusiastic of first-class passengers. Whatever that means. I forgot to mention that there was Wi-Fi throughout the flight, although it was incredibly expensive, topping out at $60 for 20 megs. I made the mistake of buying it on the way over, an error I was not going to repeat on this flight. Luckily, I received a couple of these first-class Wi-Fi vouchers, which granted 50 megabytes each, enough to go post a couple of stories on Instagram. As we approach Montreal, descending over the Quebec countryside dressed in their autumnal colors, I'll share my thoughts on this first-class flight. Swiss is among the dwindling number of airlines who still offer first class, so they have taken up the gauntlet of crafting a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But they do it very differently than a lot of other airlines. As you may have noticed, they didn't offer caviar, their champagne didn't cost hundreds of dollars, and there wasn't anything flamboyant or elaborate about their cabin. Instead, the experience they cater to is one of subtle refinement. Their cabins are sharp, their seats are stylish, but no part of their product, be it tangible or not, is boastful, loud, or flashy. Their menu is small, but each dish is crafted from careful thought and effort. Anyone can serve an expensive steak or add truffles to pasta, but what Swiss do is to take the best your country has to offer and offer it to you. Each dish had a flavor unique to its own, and often one I've never tasted. The cheese and wines also paired perfectly in the dry airplane air, something that shouldn't go unnoticed. Since I was the only person in the cabin, the service was unsurprisingly phenomenal. The two cabin crew taking care of me were always finding ways to make me more comfortable, and after discovering that I'm a bit of a plane and travel nerd, they were incredibly enthusiastic in telling me about their experiences, how the airline works, and what goes into a flight. So, do I think it was worth the 1,000+ euros I spent on the upgrade? Absolutely. Will I spend that much to upgrade again? Probably not. Like I said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and having experienced it once, that's enough. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to me blabber on for 40 minutes. I won't be uploading for a little while as I do some travel for work, so if you want to catch up with me, you can find me on Instagram. If you liked this video, I've got quite a few others you can check out. But until the next time, I hope you're all doing well and safe travels.